The Special Forces ODA has been the most requested soft unit of action since the beginning of the global war on terrorism.
And they bear the burden of the losses, as you said.
And with that comes a lot of losses.
What do you see in the organization, and where do you see its place?
My transition, not to get too off track, has really already started because I'm getting the opportunities to spend more and more time doing things outside of the uniform, which is amazing. Kind of the irony of it is, for 20 years, the world, and particularly the nation, knew what we were doing. And many wanted to act on that in support of our service members because we were in multiple conflicts and it was right in front of their faces most of the time. We obviously suffered many losses. The Special Forces ODA has been the most requested soft unit of action since the beginning of the global war on terrorism, by a mile. And that's because of what we do, how we do it, and the effects that we create.
And they bear the burden of the losses, as you said.
And with that comes a lot of losses. All right, heavy costs come with that, which we accept wholeheartedly, no problem, no hesitation. My point is that for 2 decades, organizations like GBF was able to receive more funding and support because it was so obvious what we were going through, and people wanted to be a part of that support network. The truth is that although we are no longer in that type of conflict like we had been, we're seeing the effects, the second and third order effects of having been at that tip of the spear for that long now. So you could argue, and Charlie would know this better than me, but I would, where I'm positioned today, say that the demand, the need for services like this is arguably higher today than it was even at peak GWAT, because a lot of those lasting effects didn't take place while guys were actively in the fight. And you're seeing that trickle effect happen now. So one of the things that I message loudly is, one, just because you don't see it on the 24-hour news cycle like you did, we're still out and operational every single day around the world. And two, the need for support and resources, in my opinion, is higher today than it was back then. So just because it's not as obvious, do not mistake that for the need to no longer exist.
Yeah, there's a lag factor, that comes with this, right? Everybody was still, up until 2 years ago, really, in the fight. And now, as Charlie, you talked about that next conflict, we have to prepare the force for the next conflict. But a lot of those who were in the previous 20 years are now going to get out over the next couple of years. Yeah. One of the things that I think is really important as the organization has grown is to put an advocate and a representative in each of the active duty groups. Can you talk for a second about that initiative, where it is, and what the next steps are for it?
Absolutely. We are stronger together. That's a new phrase that I'm using. And the reality of it is we need to be where the various groups are from a transition support perspective, but also from a perspective of if somebody walks into 5th Group and talks to Tim Ambler, who's our VSO at 5th Group, and says, hey, I'm having some trouble with this initiative, or I'm having some trouble with this life experience. Who can I talk to? Tim knows he can call somebody right away on the team, and we'll start servicing that particular request. So it's there to be embedded with the groups to be able to form that long-lasting partnership of trust and donor-centric, partner-centric, but more importantly, friend-centric mindset. But then also to use that as, a force multiplier concept to say, we're going to be with them across the entire spectrum of their career in service and then post-service. And so what I've been saying is effectively, but not really in 100% cases, the global war on terror has concluded to the levels that we once saw, like you were just talking about. The challenge is that conflict may be over for the guys in SF and those who are in the conventional forces, we're fighting. But they are fighting a now new conflict. You have traumatic brain injuries, you have PTSD, you have struggles with alcohol and substance abuse issues, you have transition issue. I said to one of the VA guys that we work with on a regular basis, why does it seem like the hardest mission a Green Beret has to deal with is when he gets out, he's trying to get his benefits, right? And in the world that we live in, you sign a contract, you're expected to get the benefits that you're promised when you're 18 years old or 20 years old, and then you're trying to go get those benefits, and it's all of this red tape and it's all these challenges. And our VSOs, they help guys navigate that just constant mountainous terrain to let it be and make it be a little bit easier for them. So we help them with that, because quite frankly, what we don't want to happen is exactly what happened in the Vietnam era. You had guys that came in, they got evaluated, they got their award, but then 25, 30 years later, they started to develop serious issues, cancer, other traumatic brain injuries that were finally coming to the head. And so you have to go and reevaluate their med grade, right? And you see like, oh gosh, like they're at 60%, they should be at 100%. And so we specialize in that too. We get guys who've been getting benefits for all these years, and we get them the right rating. The problem is you don't want the guy to get the right rating with the one-time check. It's a 40 years of back pay or 30 years of back pay, which is great. But think of all the challenges that person has gone through in their time of service, but then also too, like they didn't have that money for 30 years. So the initiative that we're trying to do is make sure that guys are rated the right way, so they're set up for success on day one when they transition, whether it's 3 years or whether it's in 10 years. You know, you want that next chapter not to be a conflict. You want it to be an adventure, and a good adventure at that.